Welcome back to another tabletop review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Mossberg International Silver Reserve 12 gauge over-under shotgun. Here we have a really nice entry-level over-under shotgun, the International Silver Reserve 12 gauge by Mossberg. This is one of the early Silver Reserve models, probably about 20 years old, with walnut stock and forend, and with engraved doves taking flight on its silver receiver. The thing about these Mossbergs was that some of the early model Silver Reserves were prone to having firing pin breaking issues. So as a result, sometimes you can pick up a used one at a really good price. And the good news is that there's an easy, no-cost fix from Mossberg if needed. As my wife and I were leaving a gun show last year, we ran into this fellow walking around with this gun looking for a buyer. He wanted $575. Fortunately, I actually knew a bit about the Mossberg Silver Reserve shotgun. My daughter-in-law owns a 28 gauge version of this same gun, and my son has one of the higher-end Mossberg International Gold Reserve 12 gauge shotguns from the same era, and I've liked shooting both, so I was interested. This one was in nice condition, although the wood finish is a little faded. And overall, the Mossberg International Silver Reserve does have a pretty good reputation as a good entry-level over-under shotgun. In the end, I was able to pick this gun up for $475 out the door, which I thought was a pretty good deal. Now, before we go any further, let's make sure this gun is cleared first. And by the way, if you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. The Mossberg Company has been in business since just after World War I. For the most part, Mossberg has been best known for the production of pump-action and auto-loading shotguns. The Mossberg 500 and 590 pump shotguns, for example, are downright legendary, owing much to their popularity with the military and law enforcement. But in the early 2000s, Mossberg began to offer a field-grade over-under shotgun for about $500, the International Silver Reserve. Initially there was some skepticism because yes, it was indeed in partnership with the Turkish gunmaker Kayhan Art S.S. And yes, it was certainly value-priced. But skeptics were surprised to quickly discover that this was no ordinary, poorly made, cheap import. Now let me just say that I've owned a few less than spectacular entry-level over-under imported shotguns like the Boito and Stoger, and I can attest that this Mossberg International Reserve 12 gauge is indeed notably a far, far better shotgun in many ways. True, like most Mossberg shotguns, the International Silver Reserve came without a lot of frills such as ejectors and extended choke tubes, but some would argue that what it did have was actually more than you might expect. The wood is black walnut and the fit is good for what you paid. The checkering is actually hand cut, clean, and actually pretty good. The wood finish is not that great, seems thin to me. This particular recoil pad has been replaced, but even the original recoil pad was soft and nicely fitted. And note that the butt plate has a small plastic insert at the top. The insert served to keep the soft rubber from catching on your shirt as you shouldered the gun. The gun originally would have come with 5 flush choke tubes, including a pair of improved cylinder tubes on earlier ones for target shooters, and all rated for lead, steel, and other non-toxic shot. The barrels are chrome lined and ported on this one. The integrated tang safety also provides for barrel selection, and there's a single trigger. By the way, the safety is not automatic, which I prefer. The previous owner has replaced the original front bead sight of this gun with a good size fiber optic sight, but this gun also came with a midway bead. The engraving features a pair of doves taking flight, which I know many dislike. Some have even called them tacky. In fact, it's the doves on this gun that revealed that it's an earlier model, because Mossberg would eliminate them in later production of the Silver Reserve. However, I think the engraving overall is nicely done. The action is over-under box lock, and the Mossberg International Silver Reserve was offered in 12, 20, 28, and 410 bore. The length of pull is about 14 inches. Overall length is 44.5 inches. This one has 28-inch barrels equipped with extractors. The weight of this particular 12 gauge over-under is a bit heavy at 7.9 pounds. It was common for Silver Reserve 12 gauge shotguns to come with 5 flush choke tubes, cylinder, improved cylinder, modified, improved modified, and full. On the left side of the barrels we have stamped "Made in Turkey" by Kayhan Art S.S, then imported by Mossberg International, Incorporated, North Haven, Connecticut. On the right side we see "Warning, before use read owner's manual for safe operation." Then there's 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch and 3 inch. And on the underside we have Mossberg International and Silver Reserve. Mossberg has also produced a higher end version of this gun, their International Gold Reserve shotgun, which was also available in 12, 20 gauge, and 410 bore. The Golden Reserve guns featured hand-select black walnut stocks, polished blued barrels, scrolled engraving on silver receiver, and a set of 5 extended sport choke tubes. The bottom of the receiver even bears a Mossberg logo with 28-karat gold inlay. All Gold Reserve guns came with auto ejectors. There was also the black label 12 gauge version available with a black receiver finish and 30-inch barrels, and a Super Sport 12 gauge version available with a fully adjustable walnut stock and 30-inch barrels. As for packaging, I've seen the Silver Reserve shotgun shown with either a cardboard box or plastic hard case. It appears that the field version might have come in a plastic case. Unfortunately, mine was used and there was no packaging. As I've said in other reviews of break-open shotguns, over-unders like this are like revolvers in the handgun world. Simple and efficient. Push this lever over to break open. Load the appropriate 2 3/4 inch or 3-inch shells. These are spent shells for demonstration purposes. Close the action. When ready, take the safety off. Point and pull the trigger. Point again and pull the trigger again, and the remaining barrel will fire. Push the action lever over and open the action. The extractors will lift the shells slightly for easy removal. Reload and repeat. Basically that's it. Everything functions very smoothly on this gun. Note that the safety doesn't reset automatically on this gun. You have to set it manually, which I prefer. As for feel, at around 8 pounds, this is a fairly heavy gun. It's one of the first things you notice when you pick this gun up. It's a full pound heavier than my Ronchi 12 gauge semi-automatic, which has been my go-to shotgun for years, so it's quite noticeable. And it's slightly barrel heavy as well. Nonetheless, in my opinion, in the field it handles well and is very easy to swing. The barrel selector on the tank safety locks into each position with an audible click. The safety lever must be in the safe position to switch barrels. Pressing to the right reveals a letter U indicating that the underbarrel has been selected. Pressing to the left reveals an O indicating that the overbarrel has been selected, and the safety acts as a trigger disconnect. The action lever operation is smooth and positive. The extractors lift the shell nicely for unloading. Again, I prefer extractors over ejectors. It's easier than having to pick up my shells. Trigger pull is about 5 pounds. There's a crisp release. Pulling the trigger again fires a second barrel. The second barrel is not set by inertia, so the trigger action is always solid and sure, even when using light loads. Now personally, I don't think this is a great trigger, but it's not bad either. Kind of mediocre. The 12 gauge recoil isn't bad at all, but this is a heavier gun with a softer, thicker recoil pad and ported barrels. With this aftermarket pad, the length of pull is 14 5/8 inches, which with my long arms works really well for me. Overall, the Mossberg International Silver Reserve over-under shotgun is operationally a smooth functioning field grade shotgun. I think it looks good, maybe not great. It's got a good solid feel to it, easy to handle, accurate to shoot. Technically it's basically a sporting shotgun, and as such it's heavier and designed for more consistent shooting. And as such, it's a good choice for skeet, trap, and sporting clays in my opinion. As for pros and cons, I already mentioned the history of breaking firing pin problems on these guns. So far, Mossberg has been good at helping out owners with that issue if your gun falls into the afflicted early serial number group for that problem. At about 8 pounds, it isn't a gun I'd recommend for long treks through the bush, but it does swing nicely and handles very well. For its cost, the fit and finish are fine, and the gun's selectable barrel tang safety, ported barrels, and 5 choke tubes are probably more than you might expect on a gun in this price range. Although the wood finish has faded a bit on this one, it is otherwise in beautiful shape for a 20-year-old gun. The metal parts are very good, so it's held up fairly well. I wasn't too sure about the aftermarket fiber optic sight here, but I've gotten used to it. And while I'm not a big fan of these ported barrels, they don't seem to have harmed this gun's performance at all. I do very much like this thicker aftermarket pad, and I appreciate the added length of pull it provides. But to be honest, the comb height on this stock is still too high for my needs. It's not too bad, but it's also not quite right. I can't blame the gun on this issue because most shotguns don't fit me very well due to my long arms and long neck. It's just the way it is. So I'll be adding a rib to help with this issue. All this being said, today's Mossberg International Reserve shotguns are offered in a good variety of formats, so you should be able to find a stock barrel and bore to meet your needs, and importantly at a price that won't break the bank. To disassemble, pull this lever out from the underside of the forend and pull the forend off. The forend easily comes away from the gun. The barrel is hooked into the receiver. Press the locking lever over to open, then swing the barrels down for removal. That's it. Reassembly is the opposite. Return the barrels and close and lock the action. Return the forend and you're done. Test for function, and that's all there is to it. The suggested retail price on a new Mossberg International Silver Reserve 12 gauge over-under shotgun today ranges from about $700 to about $1,100. And according to TrueGunValue.com, used Mossberg International Silver Reserve 12 gauge over-under shotguns are selling for an average of about $600 today. More if all the original parts like the 5 chokes and box are included. Trade-in values might bring $450 to $500 depending on condition. When you look at actual sales during the past year, yes, that average used price of about $600 seems to be pretty accurate. And let me just say that I don't see these Mossberg Silver or even the Gold Reserve over-unders at gun shows very often in my area, so I feel pretty lucky about finding this one. And obviously, as my picking this one up for $475 demonstrates, deals can be found. So I'd say if you see one of these for around $500, that's probably a good price. Now before we end today's video, I'd like to remind you, if you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe down below. And thanks for watching. Wrapping up this 20-year-old 12-gauge Mossberg Silver Reserve shotgun is a pretty nice over-under. I'd say it's better than just functional for an entry-level gun. Except for the engraved rising doves on the silver receiver, today's International Silver Reserve shotguns appear to be quite similar to this older version. I picked this one up used last year for $475, and for what I paid, I'm very happy with it. One of its previous owners replaced the original shoulder pad and bead front sight, but those changes have turned out to be good modifications, at least for me. In order for this gun to better fit my needs, you'll note I've already added a little higher rib to this gun. You can check out how I determined the height I needed to add and how I made and attached this rib to the shotgun by watching my next video, episode 2024-21. So yes, this gun has had a few modifications made to it, but in my opinion, I think this gun looks good, feels good, and handles very well. At least to me, the Mossberg International Silver Reserve 12 gauge really does seem like more gun overall than you might expect at this price range. Now, as you know, I'm not a professional, so I can only speak to how this gun has performed for me, which is very, very well. And as a good sporting clay shotgun, I can honestly say I've got no complaints. Any weapon you carry is better than the one you left at home. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll be back for my next tabletop review. And until next time, stay safe.